Meditate on the word of God day and night. You will make your own way prosperous. Meditate on the word of God day and night. You will make your own way prosperous. 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 Oye. Today, I want to share with you under this title. What do you do after you hear the word of God? This is a title that I have dreamed on the 15th of April 2022. I was thinking that this is just my mind. Is any message that will come out of this title? I wanted to ignore this, but it keep on ringing in my mind until I write it down. What do you do after you hear the word of God? Because you need to do something to believe what you have heard. The book of Romans chapter 10 verse 17 it says, faith comes by hearing. After you hear the word of God, you need to hear message that are in line with what you have heard for you to continue to believe what you have heard. The message that you have heard on Sunday that you were excited about is not your message. It's a pastor's message. Until you meditate on what you have heard, make what you have heard to be a part of you by meditating on it. Then it will be your message. Because some of the things that we are saying, we don't mean them because they're not coming from the bottom of our heart, including me. There are some of the things that I'm saying, but I don't mean them because they're not coming from the bottom of my heart. But for something to come out of the bottom of my heart, it needs me to meditate on that thing and it become part of me. It will come out from the bottom of my heart. What do you do after you hear the word of God? Because you need to do something about it. Look at the thought that is controlling your life right now. Because that thought is rooted from the bottom of your heart. How did it become rooted from your heart? You have meditated on that thought and you have feed that thought with other thoughts that are in line with that thought, for that thought to be rooted from the bottom of your heart and controls you. So after you hear the word of God, you need to meditate on the word of God and feed the word of God with the word of God. Feed the word of God with the words that are in line with the word of God, so that what you've heard will be rooted from the bottom of your heart and start to control your life. That is exactly what you need to do after you hear the word of God. Because hearing the word of God not doing anything is not Iowa. Look at Abraham. After God gave him a promise, what did he do? Because he didn't have the Bible like you and I. But this is what I believe he did. He meditated on what God has said. Make what God has said to become part of him by meditating on it and hold on what God has said. Because if you have heard what God has said and forget about what God has said, it would have been impossible for him to hold on what God has said if he was forgotten what God has said. But what he did, he meditated on what God has said and made what God has said to be part of him. So it is important to meditate on the word of God. What did you do after you hear the prophecy that talk about your future? You have lost that prophecy because it didn't make you to be a part of you. What about the dream that talk about your future? You have lost that dream because it didn't make the dream to be a part of you. What about the last message that you've heard from the conference that you were excited about it? You've lost it because you didn't meditate on that message to be a part of you. What do you do after you hear the word of God? Because you need to do something.